Good morning and welcome to PRISMA's webinar on the midterm tender via AggregateEU. I'm Constanze from PRISMA and I'll guide you through today's session. The webinar will be recorded. You can rewatch it later. However, all participants will remain anonymous. As our first midterm tender starts on February 15, our aim today is to ensure you are well prepared for that. We've put together a detailed demonstration where a PRISMA expert will walk you through the process step by step. After the demo, you will have the chance to ask your questions in a Q&A session. And in the second part of this session, you can also ask non-technical questions about the midterm product to the representatives of DG Anna, who are also with us today. Before we delve into the specifics, we want to take a moment to discuss the purpose and background of this new tender process. And we are delighted to have the Vice Executive President of the EU Commission, Mr. Šefčovič, with us today, who will provide some insights on that matter. Following that, PRISMA's Managing Director, Götz Linke, will offer some perspectives to all of us. Without further ado, let's kick off with the opening words from the Executive Vice President. Mr. Šefčovič, the virtual stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Constance. And I also would like to wish a very good morning to all of you, ladies and gentlemen. And first of all, let me thank you for your interest and engagement over the last year in our flagship initiative for the joint purchasing of gas on the EU energy platform. I also would like to thank PRISMA, our service provider, for hosting this workshop and for being an excellent partner, and to appreciate the remarkable work. I'm glad that we will continue our partnership during the 2024. Today, we want to outline what has been achieved, and let me say the results have been far beyond my expectations, and set out how we propose to move forward in 2024, in particular in relation to our midterm product. The joint purchasing mechanism, which was brought into existence in only a couple of months and under the enormous economic and political pressure of the energy crisis, has undoubtedly been a great success in three respects in particular. The first, in the great interest that the market has paid to the mechanism. More than 180 companies of various sizes and from different sectors have contributed and subscribed to the work of the AggregateEU instrument that we use for the joint purchase. And I have to say that thanks to your trust in this joint project, we have managed to transform the mechanism into a valuable tool that provides an additional avenue to procure and sell gas and contributes to improved market transparency. Second, in the remarkable results achieved, over the 4 rounds organized in 2023, 113 buyers notified more than 54 BCM of demand, while 48 sellers submitted offers for more than 61 BCM. And this led to oversupply situation in many of the tenders. After selecting the most competitive supply offers, AggregateEU was able to match more than 42 BCM in order to cover this new element of European demand. And the third, and just as important, the platform has delivered good results consistently over all 4 rounds. We have proven that the process works well, and I'm convinced that with some improvements and adjustment, we can pool our demand even more effectively and make even greater use of Europe's collective political and market weight to strengthen the supply of not only gas and hydrogen, but also other strategic commodities. So now turning to 2024. Although the worst of the energy crisis is hopefully behind us, we must continue to carefully observe uncertainties and volatility in the energy market. The wars in Ukraine and Gaza rage on. Our strategic energy infrastructure remains under threat. Furthermore, President Biden's recent announcement of a pause on pending decision on LNG exports to FTA countries may also send jitters to the European and global energy markets. And while prices have stabilized somewhat, they have not yet reached the pre-war levels, affecting the competitiveness of the European companies, especially in energy-intensive industries. Against this global context, we have managed to prepare and reach an agreement on a new legislation that will turn the joint purchase of gas into a permanent instrument. Therefore, we will continue organizing the joint purchase of gas on a voluntary basis while seeking to make it more attractive. The first improvement we will implement already in February with the introduction of the new midterm product with deliveries of up to 5 years. The new product has been developed based on extensive industry outreach over the last 12 months, including through the industry advisory group, direct engagement with the energy-intensive industries and industry associations, and numerous engagements with individual market players. Many of you asked for a new product that would better match your procurement strategies and the needs in terms of stability and predictability for contracting gas supplies, while complementing the standard short-term product offered on the platform. To that end, the new midterm product will allow market actors to submit demand and supply offers for 6-month period, both for summer from April to September and winter from October to February for up to, and I would underscore, 5 years. Importantly, to ensure even greater confidentiality, the identity of buyers notifying demand on the platform will be anonymized. The first tender with a midterm product will be launched on 15th of February and will cover demand from April 2024 to October 2029, with the second coming in the autumn. In between these 2 rounds, we will hold tendering rounds with a short-term product as in 2023. Today is the first of series of outreach events we will organize over the next 2 weeks to promote the midterm product. The team will provide you with further details of the midterm product, the related outreach activities, and the joint purchase rounds that we will organize this year. Dear colleagues, I hope that this new product will better match your needs, and I very much count on your active participation in the first round in February. We'll closely monitor the results of the tender with a new midterm product, and we look forward to receiving your feedback. To conclude, I can confirm that in March we'll present to you further potential improvement of the joint purchase of gas, so please stay tuned. And now I would pass the floor back to our PRISMA colleagues, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Šefčovič, for this perspective. We know that you cannot stay with us for the whole session due to other commitments, but let me say once again, we appreciate that you took the time to be part of our webinar today. As previously announced, we will now hear some remarks from PRISMA's Managing Director, Götz Linke. So Götz, over to you.
Thanks, Constanze. And first of all, good morning to all of you. Thanks, Executive Vice President, Mr. Šefčovič, for this insightful and motivational speech. We all know that teamwork in times like this is highly, highly important. And I think we as an industry, together with the Commission, but all industry players worked in the last year to make this AggregateEU to work even better. Who would have believed this? A year ago, the project seemed to be daunting and there were doubts. However, we could launch together with everybody in a very intensive period of consultations and working together to understand that today's challenges have to be tackled in a different way than it was in the past. So I think that is a great learning, and the adaptability of all of you made this AggregateEU work, and to ensure that we can go into this year and to provide even better products to all of you. And this was only possible together that we were listening to you. And Executive Vice President Šefčovič already mentioned that we have been extended the matching period to up to 5 years, but we also have a minimum period of 6 months. So we all know that the flexibility on the one hand is important, but also the long-term perspective are highly, highly important to send the right signals to our industry players. So that's really is important, and that's why we call this, it's not just a product, it's a gas procurement that is needed for industrial users and retailers and the final wholesale consumer. That's really, really important to keep that in mind. And we took note of this. And thank you for all to provide this input to make this more attractable and competitive for the future. So whether you're interested in NBP or LNG tenders, we want to make that work in your interest. On the buyer side, this product will also increase your prominence during the procurement process. As I mentioned, we offer simple and efficient means to all of you, and the choice to contact and to contract prospective sellers entirely in your hands, and that's also important. So we continue with some elements from the past and moving that into the future. That's really important to combine the needs of today with relevant needs of everybody. So in conclusion, before we will dive into the details, I just want to stress that it's a vision for the future of Europe's energy market. That's really important in times on uncertainty to have a vision. And we want to work with you all together to make that vision a strategy and to make it workable. And therefore, I can just reassure what Mr. Šepkovič said, that we will continue throughout of the year to listen to you, to adapt the product, and that's a very good spirit to tackle the challenges of today in a joint way forward. So thanks very much, and Constanze, back to you.
Thank you, Götz, for these valuable insights. Now I think we're well prepared to start with the more technical part, a demonstration of the midterm tender process on the PRISMA platform. I'm happy to introduce Ole, one of our PRISMA software engineers who is with us today, as this expert that will guide you through each step in detail. The Q&A section is enabled. So during the demonstration, you can type your questions in. You can also choose to do this anonymously if you prefer. And following the demonstration, Ole will then answer your questions. Ole, whenever you're ready, you can take over.
Thank you, Constanze, and a warm welcome from me as well to all of you. Constanze already introduced me a little bit. I am one of the software engineers to actually help develop AggregateEU, and today I will showcase the midterm process to all of you. For that, I have prepared a small agenda. I will start by recapping the midterm tendering process in, well, roughly 30 seconds. We have already gotten 2 introductions to the big changes. Yet for everyone that will watch a shortened recording, I will recap that. Afterwards, I will give you a short summary of the registration process in case you haven't participated before but want to participate now. Then we're going to go into the real fun part, and I will walk you through the midterm tendering, both from the buyers and the sellers perspective. And as Constanze announced, afterwards, I will be available for a technical Q&A and clarify all the remaining questions you might have regarding this product. To start, what is midterm tendering? As said before, this is now for buyers and sellers looking for long-term partnerships. The tender duration has been increased to 6 months, and we are now collecting demands for up to 5 years. And especially important for a lot of the buyers, this is anonymous and individual tendering. So your demand will be presented to potential sellers, but your company will stay anonymous until you as a buyer then chose to approach the sellers that have expressed their interest. To get you started, registration for AggregateEU is a very simple 3-step process that starts with registering on the PRISMA platform itself. To do so, there is a very simple registration form. You just have to fill this out, confirm your data and email address later on, and then the PRISMA customer success team will review the information you have provided and either approve your registration request directly or contact you to clarify any further questions. Then for participation in AggregateEU, you have to provide a declaration of honor. This needs to be submitted in order to participate, and you can find the template for this in our knowledge base. You then need to fill this out and sign it with a qualified electronic signature. And then keep it at hand because you will need it in the last step we're getting to, which is the subscription step. Here you log in with your newly created PRISMA account. We'll go to the AggregateEU section, can configure all the roles you need to participate in, so buyer, seller, or even both. And then also upload your declaration of honor there. Submit this, and again, the customer success team at PRISMA will review your application and either approve it or contact you for further questions. Now, where to find that template for the declaration of honor and all the information I talked about. In case you need support, I can point you to our knowledge base that is available at help.prisma-capacity.eu. And on there, you will find this nice AggregateEU hub with articles describing basically everything I've just told you and everything I'm also going to tell you in the next few minutes. In case those articles are not enough, you can always contact the customer success team directly, either via email or phone. And with that, and an active AggregateEU subscription, you will then be able to participate in the midterm tenders. And how that will look, I'm going to walk you through this now. Again, we will start with the demand submission phase here on the platform. And in this case, we are subscribed as a buyer. And you will again be, as a buyer, able to submit demand for LNG at our 2 virtual points and for the usual pipeline gas at national balancing points. As you can see with this midterm tender, we have now made a few small changes to this overview step. You can see that the tender cards for the LNG and the NBP tender now clearly state midterm in the second text line. This indicates that this is a midterm tender, opposed to the short-term tenders that will now be marked as short-term. And what does midterm mean? Again, you see the demand runtime is now expressed as summer 2024 until winter 2029, which is the 5-year period expressed in 6-month intervals identified as summer and winter. And how this looks now, if you go into the demand section, we can see that there are already 2 demands prepared here for us. And on the My Demands page here, you can see that the cards have been reorganized a little bit. You still see the name and all your demands, but the duration now also states summer to winter, where summer always is a period starting on the 1st of April, going until the 30th of September. And winter is the period going from 1st of October to the 31st of March of the year. And thus you also see the demand graphs changed a bit, now showing larger amounts and the 5 years of summer and winter periods that you can submit your demand for and manage your demand here. You can then create a new demand if you want to, just by pressing the New Demand button, as we will see here now. So on this demand submission form, that might look very familiar to those of you who have participated in the short-term tenders before. You must at first select whether you want to submit LNG or NBP demand. If you are using the central buyer functionality, you can select who you are acting as. In this case, we are going to skip this and just submit the demand for ourselves. However, if you are interested in acting as a central buyer, the knowledge base has all the information you need there. And finally, you can select the location in which you want to submit demand for. That must be a location you haven't submitted demand for before in this tendering round. If you have already submitted a demand for that, please instead go to the My Demand screen and use the edit functionality there, because you cannot submit a second demand for the same location. And with those configured, you can basically already see the list of periods where you can submit demand for. Again, there is a small tooltip to remind you if you have forgotten which summer periods and winter periods are, which month are included in there. And there you can now also just enter your demand for the available periods. Something new, the minimum demands have been increased for the midterm tenders. It is now 1.8 terawatts for LNG per period, and for NBP it's 30 gigawatt hours. And for LNG procurement, as you can see here, you could again select preferred terminals. However, this is only for your internal documentation purposes, and in the case of midterm tenders will not be shared with the sellers. And as you can also see, you can just remove periods if you don't want to submit any demand for this. And with that, you can submit your demand after accepting the terms and conditions, and afterwards will be redirected to the My Demand screen again, where you can see your newly placed demand with the demand curve you have submitted. So, and as long as the demand submission window is open, you can place as many demands as you like, edit your demands, and also completely withdraw your demands again, just by clicking on the withdraw button and then confirming that you indeed want to do this. And then the demand is just gone. To show you how it looks for editing demand and how working with demand at national balancing points looks like, we will edit the demand here. And there you see it's basically the same form, just without the preferred terminal selection, and you can make all the changes you want. Change a few data, remove a few periods, add others again, and then submit your demand. And that is the demand collection phase for the buyer. As usual, this will be running for a few days, so you have time to submit your demand. And all the information on how to place a demand, edit and withdraw it can also be found by either rewatching this recording later or going into the knowledge base. There is a demand collection section that will explain in general how this works for short-term and midterm tenders, but also go on into the specialities of the midterm tenders. And after that phase, as you might already know, we get into the information sheet review phase. This lets you, for a final time, review the demands that you placed before they go into tendering. And on those information sheets, you see for each period and each location, the submitted demand. The difference to previous short-term rounds, there is now no aggregation happening with the other buyers. Thus, the field maximum total demand is no longer included, and you only see your demand, as it will also be tendered alone and with the amounts and location and time that you can see here. For better overview, you can filter this list with the available filters, so process type, location, and runtime. There you can just select the location you want, press on the filter button, and get the filtered list in chronological order for a nice overview. If you want to, you can at that point still decline participation for individual information sheets. To do so, you can just press Decline Information Sheet. However, this is an irreversible decision. You cannot take that back, and it will alter the demand profile that you placed in the previous step, removing this period from the later tendering. So please be careful with this if you really want to do this, but if you mistyped or have any other issues with the demand you placed, this is the last point to back out before the tendering phase. And with that, this also concludes the information sheet review phase and also the active participation part for the buyers. This information again can be found in the knowledge base if you want to have a look at that again. It's called Demand Review section there, and you will find all the information that you need. And now for tendering, we go into the part where we are subscribed as a seller. And in this tendering phase, you see also a few noticeable changes for our midterm tenders. Scrolling through that here, you see demands are not aggregated anymore. Thus, there is now one tender card for one buyer at one location and a period. This means there will be more tendering cards, and you see this buyer identity field being highlighted here. As said before, for the sellers, the identity of the buyers is kept as a secret. But to still allow you to see the whole demand profile of such a buyer, you can see this randomly generated pseudonym, which will, during one tender, identify always the same buyer. So you know that if the buyer identity is the same, the buying company is the same, but you don't know which one it is. And this allows you as a seller to inspect a demand profile of a specific yet unknown to you buyer, thus protecting their identity, not revealing their specific demand to the market, but still allowing the participation for this long term without aggregation. You can filter for this buyer identity in order to get a better look at the offers. And yeah, then you will see the period shown and submitted by the buyer beforehand. You can also filter by location if needed. Once you have found a demand profile, you can express your interest to that. Difference to short term here is you do not, as a seller, have to indicate quantity or price. You only express your interest. All negotiations about amounts and price are then happening outside of the platform, and AggregateEU does not even provide hints about price or quantity. While the tender is running, as you just saw, you can also withdraw interest again if this is needed and also re-express them. If you want to process the tenders with your custom tools, it is also possible because we offer an Excel file download. The Excel file will always return the filtered view that you also get here. So if you want to download all the tenders available at a phase, you first have to start by removing all the filters. And once that is done, you can then download the Excel file. We will now show this Excel file to you once. And in the end, it is all the information you also get on the card, but in a nicely machine-readable format, providing you better sorting and filtering options for evaluating where you want to express your interests. And with that Excel file shown, this also concludes the tendering phase. Once the tendering phase is done, you can no longer express your interests, and then the matching starts. Afterwards, the matching results will then get published. And for you as a seller, this is now also very different for midterm products, because if you are subscribed as a seller and the process is done, you will see that there are no open processes. And going into the matching section, you will see this info box, because as a seller, you do not get to see any of the matches, because that would de-anonymize the buyers, which is not something that we want. So for now, you do not get to see any of those information as a seller. Instead, you will be contacted directly by the buyers if your expressed interest is attractive for them. However, if we then switch to the buyer's perspective, then as a buyer, we will see those matches. We are now subscribed as a buyer, as you can see. And there in the My Matches section, it looks a bit different now. You will now see a few new columns, namely the product type, which now specifies whether your match is for a midterm or a short-term product. And your share of gas and average price are empty if your product type is midterm, because buyers did not provide any pricing or amount indication. You can also filter by this new product type to make managing the interest that was expressed on your offer, on your demands easier. Going into a details page, you will then see all the contact details of the sellers that have expressed their interest. In this case, seeing your tender details also again with the preferred terminals that you submitted there, and getting the contact information of the potential seller with their company name, address, and a contact person. If you have multiple people who expressed interest, then you will of course see multiple here seen with 2 of them. And as you see also, in difference to the short-term matching, there is no price and amount quantities shown here either. As you can see now, there might be quite a few matches if a lot of sellers express interest, and here again we offer an Excel file to ease the processing on your side. You can just download that, open it, and we'll see that every single interest that was expressed in here is shown. So you will really get all the information out of there and can have a look at which seller expressed interest where, and really filter out the best possible partners for you and then approach them. So you will get their whole contact information in this Excel sheet. And with that, we are actually done. This is the whole matching process that usually runs over a longer period of time, now condensed into a few minutes. I hope it gave you a nice overview of what this will look like. And to summarize it again and highlight the differences of the short-term tendering and mid-term tendering, the tendering runtime was increased to 6 months. The minimum amounts also increased 6-fold, so now to 1.8 terawatt hours for LNG and 30 gigawatt hours for NBP demand. Instead of aggregation by month and location, the individual demands are now published anonymously, and the sellers don't answer with an amount and a price anymore, but just express their interest. And matching changes from the pro rata matching you might know from the short term to now just delivering a list of interested sellers to the buyers, so that as a buyer you can now contact interesting seller companies. And with that, the showcase part of this webinar is done, and I am available for any questions you might have regarding the technical aspects.
Thank you, Ole, for this demonstration and all the explanation you already did. I hope you're up for more. We transition to the Q&A session. Some of you have already sent us some questions, but keep in mind you can still add more. And just think about it, it's the technical part of this session. If you have any non-technical questions about the midterm tenders, we'll be discussing those during the Q&A session with DG Anna that follows, but feel free to write your questions already into the Q&A section. We'll be sorting through them in the background. But now let's focus on the first question for Ole. Could you state again what is the new minimum demand for midterm tenders and how does that compare to the short-term tender? So please.
I can again, and it is for 6 months now 6 times the minimum demand, so 1.8 terawatt hours if you are submitting demand at our virtual LNG points, or 30 gigawatt hours if you are submitting demand at one of the national balancing points.
Thank you. And the second question we got is, why is aggregated demand not any longer shown?
Well, because we are no longer aggregating demand between different buyers, so thus your individual demand stands on its own and no aggregation is performed.
And we go on with question number 3. Is there any limit to the number of sellers who can hit a bid for negotiation?
No. As many sellers can express their interest as they want. So if you have a very interesting demand profile, you might get dozens or more expressed interest. There is no technical limit here.
That was quite clear. No. Next question. Why did we not see a price on the tender offer details?
Because again, no price or amount information are transmitted during the midterm tendering. It is purely an expression of interest, and price and amounts are then discussed bilaterally between buyers and sellers.
And the next one, can you tell us which MVP are available?
It is the same list that was also available for the short term, which are basically the virtual trading points of all the European countries, but you can find an explicit list in the knowledge base.
And we go to the next question that already has a comment. So could you state again what is the new minimum that we already had? And the comment says, would you submit your presentation to us? It's very helpful. I guess in this case, I can take over. We will send a mail with the link to the recording and the training material afterwards. So you will you can rewatch this demonstration, this presentation as often as you like to feel well prepared. So then let's see, do we get a new post? Yes, we have one. If I already registered for short term, do I need register again and do a new honor declaration?
No, sorry for not pointing that out. If you have already participated in the short-term tendering, you can, without any changes, without any action on your part, directly participate in the midterm tendering.
That sounds great. Let's see. Do you have any more questions about the technical process on the platform or about everything you need to know to participate? Be waiting just a few more seconds. Keep in mind, you can also already type in questions for the non-technical part if you have those. And there's a new post. What about financial guarantee in case of matching?
Well, this is again something that is left for bilateral discussion. With the short-term information, short-term tendering, we shared those information between the buyers and sellers. However, here, as also no price indication was performed, we decided to, for now, not share any of the financial guarantees, because in certain cases, it might also reveal buyers if you know the market and know what financial capabilities they have, and we didn't want to risk that.
Thank you for the explanation. So we have still, I'd say, 1 or 2 minutes left if you have more questions about the process on the platform. So if something's coming up in your mind, something you want to know to participate in this new midterm tender process, just type it into the Q&A section. And there is a new post. Great. Do sellers have to indicate a price when expressing interest in midterm sessions?
No, there is no expression of either price or amount you can deliver. This is up for bilateral negotiations.
Thank you for the clarification. So let's see, 1 more minute to go, I'd say. So if you have something you want to know, just write it down in the chat. Otherwise, we will switch to the second part of the Q&A session. The chat seems to stay the same. So I'd say thank you, Ole, for your demonstration and, of course, for answering all of these questions. And now I would say we can switch to the non-technical part. For the non-technical, before, just keep in mind, if you have any other questions about the technical part, you can still check the PRISMA knowledge base. So there are a lot of articles that will explain everything from registering on the platform, subscribing to AggregateEU, and also about this new midterm tender process. And as I mentioned before, we will send you a link and all the information and the material so that you can prepare yourself. But now we transition to the second Q&A session, this time focusing on the non-technical aspects of the midterm tenders. Your experts in this round are several representatives from DG ANA, and on the screen we will welcome now one of them, Laurent, and he will decide for each question which DG ANA expert is best suited to respond. So, Laurent, thank you for being with us today. You're not alone, as I can see.
Thank you.
Ignacio is with you, so you can say, Ignacio, you can take over now. Perfect. Let's see if we get any questions for you two. A new post. Can you give a reason why aggregation is no longer done?
So yes, indeed, the aggregation is no longer performed in the midterm product for the reason that it would be complex to aggregate demand that would go for 6 months to 5 years. And the idea was to leave the opportunity for buyers and sellers to express demand and offers over a full profile covering the full duration of the demand. And it was not possible if we were doing an aggregation over the different 6 months period.
Thank you for the explanation. Let's see. Do you have any other questions to our DG ANA representatives? Then please type them into our Q&A section. It cannot be that there's just one question, right? Otherwise, good for us that we explained everything in a way that you think you're already well prepared. So just use this chance to write your questions in the Q&A section. I just got the information that there should be new questions, but at the moment it's not popping up, but this will probably change in a few seconds. Let's check. There is a new one I can see here. There is a friendly hi. Are we obliged to participate on midterm tenders?
No, there is no legal obligation to participate in these midterm tenders. Actually, the legal basis for AggregateEU, as most of you know, has been extended for an additional year. But given the results that we obtained during 2023, the mandatory demand aggregation is no longer mandatory for any member state or company. Therefore, participation on the platform will be voluntary for 2024.
Thank you. We can go to the next question. Why should the buyers be anonymous? These are bilateral trades. Will at least some info on the credit profile be available? Otherwise, it will be more difficult for a seller to find the platform interesting.
So the information about the buyer will be known to the seller when the former will actually contact the seller. The idea is to remove part of the competitive pressures and to prevent any discrimination when it comes to the buyers. And this is why we have decided to keep the anonymity of the buyers on the platform. But obviously, after the matching and during the negotiations, all relevant documents and information in relation to the financial capacity will be provided by the buyers and will be part of the negotiation of the contract of up to 5 years.
Thank you. About contracts, how does it interact with physical supply contracts?
Well, I mean, it is our assumption that all contracts stemming from the activities on the platform, so negotiated and signed bilaterally after the matching, are physical contracts. So they are de facto physical contracts. So we don't see how they interact. They actually are physical contract for delivery of gas.
Thank you. Another question, are buyers still responsible for organizing transport?
So the seller are responsible to organize the transport up to the delivery point. The delivery point being the terminal in the context of the LNG product, and the national balancing point or virtual trading point in the context of the other product. So that's the responsibility of the seller. And then the buyer will take the responsibility to ship the gas wherever it needs it.
Yeah, and just to add to that, there is a list of agent on behalf companies on AggregateEU. So in case the buyer does not have access to this transportation or balancing services, so on and so forth, it can get in contact with those companies published in our website where they can offer this kind of services.
Thank you also, Ignacio. And I just want to add that we will send the information about these additional services also via our mail we send out to each and every participant, and also through our newsletter, the AggregateEU updates. Next question, what about the reporting activity? Can you say something about that?
So let's say that we have two different kinds of reportings. I'm not sure specifically to which they are referring to. If they refer to Article 3 notifications, that's still in force. And if they refer to reporting on activities on the platform, there's no legal obligation for buyers or sellers to report this information to us. Nevertheless, it's extremely useful for us, in order to assess the performance of the platform, in order to obtain feedback, and in order to improve the product. So it's extremely useful for us.
Thank you. Will there be any ability for positive or negative bidding lists?
So we need more clarification on the question.
So since it's an anonymous question, whoever wrote it, please could you add a comment to explain a little bit more what you want to know? So we go to the next question in the meantime. Can a company participate both as buyer and seller, but in different periods in the midterm tender?
Yes, they can.
That was clear. So we go to the next one now. Is there going to be any application in relation to hydrogen?
So as you know, the Commission and the co-legislators are working on a hydrogen and decarbonization package, which reached a provisional agreement last December. And the adoption of such package is still pending. It will take place probably in spring, but that's a process that has nothing to do with AggregateEU. And in a case, we're working in parallel on that, and you will receive further information in due time.
Thank you for the clarification. Next question.
Coming back on the previous one, on the positive and the negative bidding, I could imagine that the question relates to the possibility to express price that would be positive or negative, which is a feature that we have for the short-term tender. But as Tom explained during his presentation, we have a system now where the bidders do not express the price. It will be purely part of the bilateral negotiation.
Thank you. And if this was not exactly what whoever is this anonymous writer, please just leave a comment so that we know what you want to know. The next one in our list is the reporting phase, working as for the short-term tenders.
Yes, it's working exactly the same.
Thank you. Next one. Does the buyer need to have an import license in its country of presence, NBP, to place demand for the midterm tender?
So as part of the subscription and the registration of the participant of the portal, it is required to all participants to be in a position to actually take the title of gas where they express demand. So this is based on the subscription and the registration that we count on participant to actually be in a position to do these activities.
Yeah, and if I may add, if you're interested in submitting demand and purchasing gas through AggregateEU and you don't have this kind of licensing, you can always contract the central buyer services, which will be, companies negotiating and purchasing gas on your behalf and then delivering it to you. And of course, we have also on our knowledge base in the AggregateEU website this list of central buyer companies which you all can contact and get their services.
Thank you. Can a company participate both as buyer and seller for the same 6-month periods in the midterm tender?
No, it must be in different tendering periods.
Oh, there are already, I think, 3 more questions for you. About the positive negative bidding lists. Can I ask to be matched only with bidders? I have a prior agreement, and ask to not be matched with counterparties who have already failed my KYC. Can you help me here?
Yeah.
So basically, as a core principle and also as indicated in our legal basis, the matching and the allocation of offers should be non-discriminative. So it means that at our level and in the context of AggregateEU, we are not able to do this kind of, let's say, discrimination process. And it has to be something that would be dealt with at the level of the bilateral discussion or when the entities have access to the results of the matching.
Thank you. Can I submit a demand for more buyers from the same sector? So if I have several ones that do not reach the minimum amount for demand alone?
So we were talking about buyers not reaching the minimum demand, if that's correct. I mean, if they do not reach the minimum demand, they will not be allowed to participate in the specific tendering period. In that case, and as we already mentioned, we suggest that, these buyers can either gather or contract the services of a central buyer in order to aggregate their demand and participate in a tender as a single entity and afterwards distribute their gas among themselves. But in case they do not individually reach our minimum quantities, they will not be able to participate individually.
Thank you. If counterparties fail to agree on terms like guarantee, are they both free to exit from the negotiations after the matching?
Yes, negotiations and contracting occur on a voluntary basis.
Okay. Are we expecting a potential IA before official discussions being triggered on integration or not hydrogen in AggregateEU?
Impact assessment.
So as I said before, the hydrogen workstream is working in parallel, so it has nothing to do with AggregateEU, and that's something which is based on a different legal basis in respect to AggregateEU. So we're working on a hydrogen mechanism, on a completely separate setting. And as I said before, it's still under development, and you will be informed in due time.
Thank you. It seems it's nothing happening in this chat anymore. I think we wait for a few more seconds, but we are already good in time. So I think if it's not popping up one more question, then we're done with this session now. So thank you, Laurent, and also Ignacio, that you shared your expertise today. And of course, if there are questions that also PRISMA can help you with, you can always check the knowledge base with all our articles about the new midterm branded process. And also, as I mentioned earlier, we will send an email to all participants afterwards containing the link to the recording and to articles. Also, it's really important that you don't forget to register with PRISMA and subscribe to AggregateEU by February 12th to participate in the tender process. And if you need any help with that, or if you have any other question that you didn't have typed into this chat that pops up in between, just reach out to our customer success team. It's ready to assist you. And we also will send the contact details to reach them again. Now, we hope we have laid a solid foundation for you to feel well prepared, and we look forward to seeing many of you on the platform on February 15th as participants in the first midterm tender via AggregateEU. So, thank you on all DG ANA representatives. Thank you, Ole, for the demonstration. And I think, thank all participants. See you then, and we wish you a great day.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.